This is your City Council Roundup, a recap of what's happening at City Hall with John Ongaro. The views expressed in this program are solely of those of the host and not necessarily those of the radio station or its partners.
Well, City Council was back in action last night in what turned out to be a kind of a strange meeting. Technical problems, getting hit by lightning a couple times sure stirred things up a little, but last night we covered a lot. Got a new fire truck, nuclear waste, simple stuff, and the tough budget ahead. So let's get into it. Everybody was in attendance last night at the start of the meeting, at least. Mayor Boshkoff was the only one absent, and Councillor Johnson was acting mayor again. It was a late start just before 7 p.m., and we were, subject to a couple of breaks. The first one was at 7:15 to reset the audio mess that they were experiencing. You have to feel for the city clerk. Last night, once again, the issues plagued the entire meeting. There were echoes in the chamber. The TV feed had voices not matching the video. It was kind of a mess. Can't imagine how frustrating that must be for the clerk, because we've been at this format with Microsoft Teams for about 4 years. It's too bad we're in the situation as a pile of money was spent in that room for high-definition video and audio upgrades. Then COVID came, and we've been stuck using Teams ever since. There just has to be a better way, as it works flawlessly one week, and the next week it's a disaster. It's frustrating. So at one point, they paused the meeting for a couple minutes to try to get it all fixed, then came back, and it wasn't. Until the lightning came. That was later in the night. 2 hits just outside of the city council, outside of city council chambers, actually fixed it. I don't know how it worked, but it worked. There was a bump in the power, and there was a pause in the chamber, but when they came back, look at that, everything was great. I guess every once in a while we need a good bolt to just get us back into line.
Remember the Fonz when he would hit the jukebox?
Yeah, it was kind of this. I was hitting my TV the whole time. First up last night, zoning changes and changes to the official plan were presented by administration. The goal is to rezone some areas of the city to allow for multiple unit housing in areas that aren't zoned for it now. It was kind of an interesting cross-section of areas. Golf Links Road in Oliver area, Cameron Street, and more were all laid out by administration. The biggest area was the old Port Arthur General site and former Cancer Center area. When you think about it, this is prime real estate with an amazing view of the lake. That area will be zoned for high-rise construction, meaning the buildings will be a minimum of 5 stories or 45 meters high and could open some opportunities for multi-unit buildings. Question is, will those be affordable? It was at that point the chair announced that they had some unfinished business from a closed session prior to the meeting, and they needed to go back in a closed session to finish their work. That break started at 7:33, went for just over an hour, and we waited and waited and waited. They came back to purchasing a brand new fire truck. That's right, a shiny new fire truck replacing a 21-year-old truck. Turns out the price of fire trucks has almost doubled in the last 5 years. Welcome to 2024. Just over $1 million was spent.
Wow.
We'll get into the money part of the agenda and the sections that should matter to you in a second, but we should mention briefly the deputation last night regarding the nuclear waste potentially coming through town in a few years. Ignace, as you know, this story is not a secret, has been shortlisted for a nuclear waste storage facility buried deep under the Canadian Shield. Waste from reactors from across the country will be trucked there and stored. 2 to 3 truckloads a day for 9 months at a time, bringing over 100,000 tons of nuclear waste to the area. And in order for it to get to Ignace, it needs to go down the Thunder Bay Expressway first. If that's terrifying, it should be a little, but what you probably don't know is that there is already piles of hazardous waste that go through our city every day. We just don't know about it. This one we do. Councillor Oliver put forward a resolution that administration review the dangerous goods route and determine if there are potential changes that may be enacted relative to the travel of hazardous materials through the city of Thunder Bay. What we did learn from a very long discussion last night is this, and it's simple. We can't do anything about it. There's already hazardous waste coming through our city, but the city has zero jurisdiction over what comes through town and when. We can't stop it. We live on the Trans-Canada, and the Trans-Canada Highway goes straight through town. We can talk about it over and over, but council has no control over this and can only review our guidelines for waste going through the city now. And that's what they approved last night after a long discussion. Whether or not Ignace is getting this facility won't be known for a long time yet, but it's something to think about. This story is not going away anytime soon. Breaking news last night. Let's get into the cash. Hey, the city has leftover money. That's right, a budget variance, a positive variance of $1.6 million. That's a lot. Works out to about 0.7% of your tax levy. But it's your money, so where did it come from? Well, $500,000 came from favorable revenue. That means we made more on city services than we thought we would. We saved $1.2 million on long-term care and senior services because we got a bunch of grants. And we made over $400,000 in rate-supported operations, too. With that, sewer charges got us back $300,000, and the city landfill made $200K more than we thought, too. That's because I had a lot of waste this year, and at $10 a time, and it starts to add up. So that's a lot of money back in our pocket. The only overspending on the list was fire. They needed $800,000 over budget because of WSIB claims and more. But the good news is that we got $1.6 million more than we had yesterday. I'm certain that some councillors got pretty excited about that. It's only August. They'll find a way to spend it outside the budget. There's still 4 months left in the year. They shouldn't use it. $1.6 million is a lot of money, but I'm willing to bet someone will find a way to try to use it. The next budget variance report is November 25th. It's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Finally, a presentation from administration last night about the 2025 budget direction. Please, if you're going to pay attention to anything, listen to this. You need to know this. Administration presented council with a mandate that holds admin to 3.8% budget increase for 2025. That doesn't sound too bad, but there's a catch, and a big one. Don't get excited about 3.8% after what we went through last year. The budget increase before growth is just for the city's portion. It doesn't include outside agencies like police, fire, and the DSAP. But when the city started looking at next year's budget, they found that we need 6 to 8% increases. But an unacceptably high number, said the city manager, John Collins. So they went back to see what they could find. And that's where this report came from, to look to council for a mandate. So how are they going to do it? Mr. Collins simply said, if you ask me how, I don't know yet. 3.8% is achievable, but exact details are to follow. But went on to say that this level will not lead to major changes of services and that reductions in services is an option of last resort. One of the things that the city needs to work harder on, though, is sustainability and this massive infrastructure deficit that must be carefully managed. Let these numbers sink in for a second. You need to hear this over and over again. Where infrastructure is concerned, that's city-owned buildings, parks, golf courses, arenas, stadiums, and roads, lights, traffic lights, etc., etc. If we were to fix everything in poor condition, the replacement value is $961 million. But it gets worse. If we were to look at the infrastructure that is in very poor condition, the replacement is another $528 million. That's $1.4 billion needed for items in poor and very poor condition. Every single year, we add $32 million in infrastructure deficits. That means we need to spend $32 million every year just to maintain what we have. And breaking news, we're not doing that. How the heck did we get here? Well, half of the people around that table are responsible for this. They guide administration to spend, and they also control their own spending. Keep in mind that there are councillors around that table that have been there for multiple terms, decades, really. This has been going on for years. We spend on things we can't afford and don't spend enough on things we need. Yet here we are facing tens of millions of dollars on shiny new things, but neglecting things that we have and things that we need. Are you actually okay with this? Let me give you this scenario. Say you made $50,000 a year and your house needed a roof and your leaky windows needed replacing. Are you going to go and buy a new snowmobile instead? Well, that's what your city councilors have been doing for years. And they're doing it again to the tune of $52 million on a turf that's not a priority. Let that sink in. But as far as your increases next year, we should thank Councillor Hamilton for pointing out multiple times last night that if outside agencies that we have no choice but to pay can't get into the 3.8%, that the city makes up the difference. That means your tax rate is not going to be 3.8%. Once police and DSAP bring their needs, which the city can't say no to, I'm going to guess that we're going to be looking at closer to 6% on your taxes next year. I hope I'm wrong. Administration is going to do their part. They're going to work hard on this. There will be some cuts, and they have to make some changes to make up the difference. But you're also facing a $50 million building next year that shouldn't be a priority. You're borrowing millions of dollars to tear down Victoriaville that is already over budget and delayed before it's even started. And you're probably building a $100 million police headquarters in the next couple of years, and the list goes on and on. Priorities, fiscal responsibility. Remember the new counselors that preach that? Now they're being put to the test. These are the people you voted for being put to the test. Remember this simple fact. Administration does what they're told, period. 13 people are elected to make the decisions. They control the yes or no on spending. They said yes to a $50 million turf when the infrastructure deficit is $32 million every year. Does that make sense to you? They also are known to hand out money to the tune of $1 to $2 million per year outside of the budget for pet projects. So before we get all excited about a 3.8 increase next year, let's wait to see what else is going up and what our actual increase will be. But at the same time, pay attention. This is a divided group. There are specific agendas for some counselors, and they're obvious. And others will sign blank checks at every turn when given the chance. If you think that's being overly dramatic, explain to me how we got to a $1.4 billion infrastructure gap. How we overspend every year on pet projects outside of the budget. And reserves can't save the day anymore. The city is on the brink. And sadly, as it was explained last night by the treasurer, we're doing okay, but we're kind of on the edge. It doesn't feel like this is a team that is going to get us out of trouble anytime soon. But instead of shiny new things as a priority, maybe they should take care of their own house first. The meeting ended at 10:50. Next meeting is September 9th.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's your city council roundup. One highlight for me is first of all, this whole budget talk, it just seems like it ended.
Yeah.
And now we're starting
all over
again.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. Now, keep in mind, strong mayor powers, we may not even see a budget. The mayor may just rubber stamp it and say, just go do it.
Do you think that'll happen?
Well, it was close last year. We didn't talk about it very much last year. But remember, there's going to be some pretty intense meetings. And if you look back at the history of this group in the last year, just imagine what's going to come when it comes to budget times. And everybody has their favorite project.
Yeah.
And everybody is going to not want to cut this or not want to cut that. We went through this last year, and how many times did we hear, well, we got to do something, but you keep saying yes to stuff. Administration does what they're told. It's up to council.
I am looking forward, though, to our new city manager.
During the budget deliberations?
Yes.
Look out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was fantastic again last night. I don't mean to gush, but he's very strong.
Very matter of fact.
He's well-spoken, and he cuts to the chase. It's very different than what it was, but when stuff starts to hit the wall, which it's going to soon, we're spending money on a lot of things, but we need a lot of things fixed first.
All right. John, thank you for this update. Appreciate it. And again, a couple of things so you know. The City Council Roundup, the recap, you can find on our website, 999thebay.ca in just a bit. Plus, if you text the word council to our T-Baytel Talk and text line, 807-344-8229, you'll find a direct link there. Nice and easy for you, and there you have it. Thanks, John.
See you in a couple of weeks.